This is the demonstration video for Electric Health Record System from Group 3. So this is the login and registration page for medical staff. When this is the first time the staff uses our system, they will need to register themselves in our system first. So this is the registration page for them. The registration form has validation for particulars. Error message will show up when the input is not valid. For example, invalid IC number, password is too short, or no entry. So let me demonstrate. As you can see, the error message will show up respectively for all the particulars. After the particulars are filled and the employee can press submit to register themselves in our system. After pressing the submit button, they will be redirected to the login page. So back to the login page, the employee are required to fill in their IC number and the password to log in. Error message will show up when the IC number key in is not in our system. For example, as you can see, the error message will show up. From the registration form just now, the employee will need to select one of the 3 roles in our EHR system, which are the receptionist, the doctor, and the laboratory staff. For demonstration purpose, we have preset 3 IC respectively for the 3 roles. So let's move on to demonstrate the first role, which is the receptionist in the reception counter. The role for the receptionist is to check in and check out the patient from the hospital. Only when the patient is checked into the hospital, then the medical staff in the hospital can only view the medical information of the patient, which serves the privacy purpose. When this is the first time the patient comes to the hospital, they are required to register in our system beforehand. So the receptionist will need to help the patient to register first.
After pressing the register button, it will direct to the patient register page and the receptionist needs to help the patient to fill out the particulars. After filling up the particulars, the patient's fingerprint will be prompted to complete the registration process, and beforehand, over here we can see there is a fingerprint priority set to avoid the unnecessary mistake. The patient fingerprint will be prompted.
The patient is ready to scan the fingerprint when the light of the sensor is on. After scanning, the blue light over the converter shows the data is transmitting and the registration process is complete once the blue light goes off. Okay, let's go back to the screen.
For the patient check-in and check-out, the receptionist needs to fill out the patient IC and prompt for fingerprint. If the patient IC is invalid, an error message will be shown up. After entering the valid patient IC for check-in, the patient fingerprint will be prompted.
The same scanning process goes to the patient check-in and check-out. After the first scan, if the sensor still prompts for another scan, this means that the previous scan is unpaired to the registered fingerprint encoding, else it is successful. Okay, let's go back to the screen.
The same process goes to the patient checkout, but the difference is the access of the hospital will be removed. For demonstration purpose, the patient will not be checked out to ease the flow. That's all for the receptionist part. Over here, there is a logout button to log out and direct back to the employee login page.
Now let's move on to the second role, which is the doctor. Same as before, enter the IC number and the password. Now this is the doctor homepage. After the patient is already checked in at the reception counter, and the patient come and meet with the doctor, if this is the first time the patient meet with the doctor will require to register the patient under his patient list. So over here, enter the patient IC. There is a variation over here also. If the IC is invalid, too short or too long, it will show its invalid number. Or if the patient IC is already registered, it will also demonstrate an error number. The username is already taken. So after the patient is registered, the doctor will require to click the patient list, and over here it will enter the patient IC. After clicking the submit button, it will direct to the patient portal to view the medical information of the patient. So this is the patient portal where the doctor can view all the medical information of the patient. The box left hand side over here is showing the basic information of the patient. The box in the middle is showing the patient history, where the doctor can update the patient history very easily by pressing the edit button. After pressing the edit button, a model window will show up, and the doctor can make changes over here and press submit to update to the current patient history. And there is two buttons at the right side, medical report button and laboratory report button. Medical report button will direct to a medical report page, which allows the doctor to create medical diagnostic report for the patient for every diagnostic session. And the laboratory report button is direct to the lab report view page, where the doctor can view the lab test result of the patient. So let's press the medical report button, and it will direct to this page. The create button over here can be used by the doctor to create a new medical report. After clicking it, it will open a modal window, and the doctor can key in all the information and press submit to add a new report. The view button over here, every report have a view button over here where the doctor can click the view button and it will show all the details of the medical report. Then we have the back button. Click the back button. Next button is laboratory report button. Clicking a laboratory report button will direct to this page where the doctor can view the lab result report by the patient, done by the patient. So there is a view button over here. Click it and it will open a new tab where the doctor can see all the result of the patient. The doctor has no authority to create a laboratory report because it can only be entered by laboratory staff, which will be discussed later on. So that is the function of the doctor page. And click back and logger button to go back to the employee login. Then let's move on to the last row, which is the laboratory staff. As usual, key in the IC number and the password. This is the homepage for the laboratory staff. The role of the laboratory staff is to key in the result of the test done by the patient to our database. Over here, there is the input to key in the patient IC. There is a validation over here. If the input is invalid, error message will show up also. Then let's key in the correct patient IC and press submit. The button will show up. Then we press the button, it will open a modal window. This modal window is for the laboratory staff to key in all the values, and then they can add the report to save all these values to our database, which can be viewed by the doctor at their site. So that's the function of laboratory staff. And there's a logger button to return to the employee login page.